Now, file item number 6, and before you get into all of this stuff, there are 3 motions that are at the heart of this process today, and our legal advisors and our policy staff advises that we will take them up in the order that they're presented in the agenda. So the environmental impact report issues must come first, then the action on the Delta plan comes second, and then the rulemaking action comes third. And accordingly, you have this package of material with your general stuff, but then you've got the separate package on the environmental impact material. You have the separate package on the Delta plan and the separate package on the rulemaking. So, Mr. Stevens, you want to give us Mr. Knopf, do you want to give us a start on this in kind of an overview?
I'd be delighted. First of all, good morning to members of the public who have joined us today and council members. This is probably, I hope it will be, an historic day. Historic in the sense that for the first time in the council's brief history, but in a continuation of a lot of previous work that's gone before, I think we're ready to step forward and create a solution, or the beginnings of a solution for restoring the largest estuary in the Western Hemisphere, for providing a reliable supply of water for Californians, and also for protecting the Delta as an evolving place. The plan itself, I think, has been difficult to characterize by many people, but I think there's 3 overriding themes that help to characterize what this plan really is and does. And first of all, it provides a framework. It provides a unifying path forward for the Delta. Secondly, it's legally enforceable. And third, it's a science-based plan. I think this is probably one of the most important aspects of this plan. There's a lot we don't understand about the Delta. There's a lot we don't understand about what we can do to enhance future reliability of water supplies. But this plan takes that into account and creates a dynamic situation where we can learn and adapt as we go. This is a fundamental aspect of this plan. Some of the things the plan will achieve: it's going to improve water supply reliability and reduce reliance on Delta waters. It will protect and restore the Delta ecosystem to the extent practical. It protects the unique cultural, agricultural, and recreational values of the Delta. It will improve water quality, and it will reduce risk to people who live in the Delta. Now, the plan that we're discussing today and its attendant documents were created from the Delta Reform Act of 2009. That act, if you recall, and as we were told in April at our previous meeting, was the result of a great deal of frustration with the CalFed program. So much so that the legislature took a bold action and created the Delta Stewardship Council with the legislative intent of making a significant change to break the gridlock. Now, I believe that's been done, and the idea is that we, as a council, as an agency of the state, can create a balance that can move this discussion forward. Now, throughout the process, and I think you will find in some of the comments today, there's been a fair amount of confusion between the Bay Delta Conservation Plan, or BDCP, and the Delta Plan. The 2 plans are mentioned and are prominently discussed in the 2009 Delta Reform Act. Very specifically, that act, which is our blueprint for what we've done with the Delta Plan, describes the responsibilities of the Bay Delta Conservation Plan and the responsibilities of the Delta Plan. So this, for example, in our plan, we call for a resolution to the issues of conveyance, of water conveyance through the Delta. We do not specify what that means because the legislature very clearly delegated that responsibility to the Bay Delta Conservation Plan, or BDCP. Similarly, the recovery of endangered species. The responsibility and authority was already vested in state and federal agencies to solve that problem. So the legislature recognized that and said, continue doing that. Now, the legislature had one other point they made when they created these two separate planning groups, and that was that eventually there would only be a single plan for the Delta, and that plan is the Bay Delta, or the Delta Plan. So ultimately, the Bay Delta Conservation Plan, or BDCP, once it's completed and approved by the Department of Fish and Wildlife, will be incorporated into the Delta Plan, resulting in a single plan for the Delta. Now, it's taken us 2.5 years, almost 3 years, to get to this point. We've gone through 8 drafts of the plan. This is the 8th and final draft of the plan right now before you, for your consideration.
It's actually the 9th.
The 9th at this point, okay.
Yeah.
And it's been shaped by an immense amount of interaction with the public and different interest groups and agencies. For example, we've heard over 13,000 individual comments from 146 individuals. We've had over 88 meetings, public meetings, the council, and had over 755 presentations to this council from 176 individuals.
By the way, ladies and gentlemen, members, on your desk is some details on this, including the dates of all the council meetings and also the workshops and the EIR hearings and so on. A list of public testimony received from the beginning of the process in April of 2010 with the entities testifying, the names of the individuals if we had them, and the frequency of comments, and then last, a list of the panelists that have presented at various issue discussions to the council. So this is a handy document to remind yourself what's been going on.
The point the chairman and I have been making in this is that folks have had a chance to comment on this. They have done so, and many, many people have done so more than once to make sure that their position is understood by yourselves and the staff. As a result of that, we've made many, many changes. That's why we are up to 9 drafts on this document at this point. And the red line versions you've become so familiar with are examples of the changes that we've made in direct response to those comments. As a result, we've gone through very recently, at our March meeting, we looked at the public comments and our responses. We made changes to those documents, and we have incorporated those changes as you have directed. At this point, the council is basically done with the content, with perhaps a few exceptions, but we're here to consider the actual documents. But during that time, we did some additional outreach, some of which was not required by CEQA. We did 2 additional 15-day comment periods. The first one was to take a look, let the public see the changes that we made in response to their comments. The second was to take a look at the financial summary that was sent to the Department of Finance. As a result of those additional comment periods, we've reviewed those comments and have made no significant changes in the plan, the EIR, or the regulations. Now, a lot of the material in front of you today, and I do apologize for the 4 binders in front of you, but we've separated this primarily for ease of understanding so that we can go through this in a logical way. But there's a lot of supporting documentation that's around the room that basically is the history of where we've been. Now, of course, the history you're all familiar with mostly with that material. This the pertinent information was sent to you 10 days ago on a CD, as well as been posted on our website for the past 10 days. So hopefully everyone is familiar with the information that we're going to talk about. But in case there's something that Your memory has faded on that. We intend to lead you through this. It is somewhat complicated, but we'll lead you through it and make sure that you understand the decisions you're going to be asked to make.
Mr. Knopf, let me ask you a question. The documents on the table to my right and behind the screen, am I correct that these are the documents that we have produced and been looking at since we started this process?
In most part, that's correct. I think some of the very earliest first three drafts I don't believe are out on the table, but the substantive ones are.
Ray?
Yeah, these are a draft of the Delta Plan, it's EIR at various volumes, including responses to comments, as well as the drafts of the rulemaking package and responses to those comments.
Okay.
Good.
John.
Follow-on question, and maybe you're going to get to this, Chris, but we've gotten some very late correspondence, or recent correspondence, I guess, recently as dated yesterday. We'll hear comments, I trust, this morning on the various aspects, and probably tomorrow as well. So is the intent that we will respond to those? Certainly I'm going to respond to questions from council members, but if things are put on the record that either distinguish themselves from things that have been commented on previously. I know we received a letter that raised some questions as recently as yesterday from Friends of the River being one of them. There may be some other correspondence that's even more recent than that. But
right.
So, Chris, is it your intent, Chris, to then respond to those on the record as a part of our deliberations?
And we appreciate all comments, even the late ones. So they really do help to clarify and inform the ultimate decision. We received, I believe, 4 comment letters yesterday. And it's important to note that those letters were received outside of the official public comment periods. So there is no requirement by law to actually respond in writing to those comments. However, they'll be part of the appropriate administrative records. So whether or not it's the EIR or the rulemaking record, they will go into the record. And we may hear from some of the people that sent in those letters here at today's meeting. And as appropriate, we may respond orally. Staff may respond with your permission to address some of those issues. And those responses themselves will then be part of the administrative record. But let's be clear that there were official public comment periods. And while we do appreciate and recognize all comment letters, and they do go into the rulemaking file and the CEQA administrative record, there is no legal requirement to respond in writing.
Mr. Natoli, I think, ladies, you have copies of those 4 letters that were late received, I think, yesterday, and perhaps this would be a good occasion to distribute them to the council, if you would, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just saying, I got a copy of one of them was emailed, but I didn't see the other ones and have not been to my office this morning if they were emailed over to us. So that would be great to have hard copies.
Yeah, no, we'll get them right out to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other comments on this? Okay.
Okay, well, just a few more points, and that's that to summarize a little bit where we've been, the structure of the Delta Plan is a mirror of the intent of the 2009 Delta Reform Act. That's why it's set up the way it is, and with the legally enforceable provisions, as well as the broader overview perspective that this plan takes versus the BDCP, which is very tightly aimed at conveyance and endangered species recovery. I'd like to thank the council and our staff and our consultants for all of their hard work over the past 2.5 years. This has been, at times, extremely challenging, I think from an intellectual standpoint, as well as just the long hours that are required and the work involved. But I'd like to also thank the public and all the organizations that have provided us input. We have diligently tried to understand your comments, incorporate them, and build a coherent and cohesive plan. I believe we've done that. One of the things that is very clear and I think is perhaps one of the common themes that we all appreciate at this point is that inaction continues the downward slide in risk to people who live in the Delta. It continues the risk of an outage of our water supplies. And of course, the ecology continues to become more and more complicated and difficult to recover the longer we delay action. The time for action is upon us. The time for planning, I sincerely hope, is behind us. With that, I'd like to turn this over to Dan, and we'll start talking about the programmatic EIR.
Before